Hi everyone, Sam here. Today I'm gonna show you how to create hypnotic patches on your synthesizers. So at first I'm gonna show you how to make one of my favorite hypnotic patch using the Behringer K2 MK2 as an example. After that I'm gonna show you how to make the exact same patch in Ableton Live using only stock plugins. Now, let's jump to it, but first, let's hear something. So, what's going on here? So at first we have the oscillator section. We have the first oscillator set to saw wave and the second oscillator set to square wave. This oscillator is an octave above the first. Both oscillators are 10 volume. After that we have the filter section. So we have the low pass set to 3 or 4 as a start value and the high pass filter set to 2. Both has a decent amount of resonance. So the first around 4 and low pass a little bit higher on resonance. To the envelope section, it's a pretty basic envelope. So we have just sustain because it is a long sustain note. This particular patch. Now the magic happens here into the patchbay. It seems a bit complex, but it is easier than it seems. So let me unpatch this and let's create it from scratch. So it is a little bit easier to understand. Now basically what we need here, we need an LFO. So we take the auxiliary out of our circuit monostation and we put it into the VCA input on the patchbay. I use Monostation's LFO just because this is synced, because in this patch I need an LFO I can sync to the tempo of my song. After that, we take the output of our VCA and I can send it to the total modulation of my K2. Now, the input control of my VCA will be modulated by the sample and hold of my K2. The sample and hold takes the clock out of my Monostation clock output. So also the clock is synced to the tempo of my track. And the sample and hold takes its information from the noise generator. So now if we play something, our low pass filter takes the modulation from our LFO, so this saw wave modulation, but the amount of modulation is random because it is controlled by our sample and hold by its amount. On top of that, to add a little bit of character, we can take our LFO output, the classic saw, triangle and ramp output, and we take it to our high pass control. So our high pass is controlled by this LFO, and this LFO isn't synced to our tempo, so we create this unpredictable modulation. So basically, here we have two different modulation for our filters that crossfade each other in some unpredictable ways. Very nice. Now let's move to the software section. Now let's create the same patch in Ableton Live. So of course we need a synthesizer. For this example I'm gonna use analog. So let's open up our analog and we can set the routing to this preset. So now we have both oscillators going into filter section number 1, and filter section number 1 goes into filter section number 2 and then to the amplifier. So we have the same kind of behavior as our K2/MS20 style synthesizer. So set the oscillators in the same exact way. So saw wave, octave down for oscillator number 1, and oscillator number 2, square wave. Filter 1 will be a low pass 12 dB octave. We can set our frequency to I don't know, 700 Hertz as a start, and we can set our resonance to 44. It's a good start. And filter number 2 will be a high pass 12 dB octave. We can set our frequency to 160 with our resonance. 32% is a good starting point. Now, very important thing. We don't need envelope for this patch, so we must set our envelope amount to 0 for both our oscillators and for our amp, because we need a stable sound. All the filter movements is made by our LFOs. So now let's go to the LFOs. Turn on LFO1, set LFO1 to a saw wave. To create a saw wave LFO in analog, we need to start from triangular shape and set our width to 100%. So now we have a saw wave waveform. Sync our LFO1 to the tempo and set our tempo to 1/2 note. So we have our first LFO. Second LFO is, we can do the same thing, but in the opposite direction, so we need a ramp waveform. So we can set our width to 10% or 0. It depends on you. I prefer set to 10% or 20% to have a less sharper waveform. And we can set our rate to 0.7 Hz. This LFO will not be synced to our tempo. Now let's go to filter number 2, to our high-pass filter, and set the amount of modulation around 2 in this patch. Now, the most important thing, we need to automate the amount of modulation that our LFO1 sends to our filter number 1 in a random way. For that, we are going into our audio effects, and in our modulator sectors we can find LFO. Open up LFO and select our random shape, set our tempo to sync, and we can set it to 1/16 note. So every 16 notes our LFO generates a random value. Adjust our offset to 50% because we don't want negative values, and we can map our LFO to frequency modulation LFO1 amount of our filter number 1. So now, if we play something, as you can hear, now our LFO1 is creating random values for our LFO1 frequency modulation amount. Now we need some effects. We need an echo. So we can set our echo to 1/8 note dotted for both left and right. Feedback to 60%, it's fine. Make a narrower filter section, just a little bit of resonance. Reduce our dry wet to 40%. Into the character section, I just give it a little bit of wobble to make it sound like a tape echo. Now we need some reverb. So go into our reverb and select our hybrid reverb, because we need a shimmer reverb. So I set our blend to 100%, and I select to the algorithm section shimmer. 3 seconds of decay is right enough. 40% size, damping 50% is just fine. 12 semitones up in pitch is perfect. You can set our shimmer to 30%. Pre-delay to 0. Dry wet to 40%. Vintage saddle. Maybe less, 32%. Now, let's write some note. And as you can hear, we have the same kind of behavior we had in our analog synthesizer patch. Now let's add some sidechain compression. I put my compressor before our echo and our reverb. So sidechain to our kick drum, post effects. And now let's hear our hypnotic sequence with our kick drum.